Sir, I beg to move that the bill to amend the Institutes of Technology Act 1961 as passed by the Lok Sabha and the bill to amend the National Institutes of Technology Act 2007 as passed by Lok Sabha be taken into consideration. Sir, as we are all aware, there were about 7 IITs in India. That is IIT Kharagpur, Bombay, Delhi, Kanpur, Madras, Guwahati and Roorkee at the beginning of the 11th plan. And all these IITs were governed by the Institutes of Technology Act 1961. And then, sir, on the 17th of July 2008, the UPA government took a decision to approve and establish 8 more IITs at Bhubaneswar, Gandhinagar, Hyderabad, Patna, Jodhpur, Ropar, Mandi and Indore. While out of these 8 new IITs, sir, 6 new IITs at Bhubaneswar, Gandhinagar, Hyderabad, Patna, Jodhpur and Ropar commenced their first semester and first academic session in 2008-2009. The remaining 2 IITs started their sessions, that is Mandi and Indore, in 2009-10. So obviously the term is over and children are waiting for their IIT degrees which they haven't got. So all the new IITs have been registered as societies under the Societies Registration Act 1860, pending their inclusion in the Institutes of Technology Act 1961. And sir, actually all the IITs started as societies. And when the Act was then instituted, then they were made institutions under the Act. But directly you can't create an IIT under the Act. So therefore we have to go through this process of constituting a cooperative society, registering them under the Societies Registration Act, and then of course incorporating them in the IIT Act. Also, sir, the Council of Indian Institutes of Technology in the 39th meeting held on the 28th of January 2009 approved the proposal of conversion of ITBHU into an IIT while keeping its linkage with BHU in some manner so that the interdisciplinary research could be given further impetus. It was also suggested, sir, that the Vice-Chancellor of BHU could be the Vice Chairman of the new IIT BHU, but we ultimately decided that he should be, in fact, the Chairman for the first 3 years. So now the position is, as the Act stands amended by the Lok Sabha, the Vice-Chancellor of BHU will be, for the first 3 years, the Chairman of the Board of Directors of IIT BHU. And subsequently, he will nominate either himself or any of his nominees as a Vice Chairman, so that there is a permanent linkage between the IIT and Banaras Hindu University, because we wanted to maintain the integrity of the Banaras Hindu University. We also wanted to maintain the linkage between the two. And we also wanted to ensure that there is cross-disciplinary research through this integrative administrative setup. And because the campus is next door, then naturally there will be a lot of synergy between what's happening in Banaras Hindu University as well as the IIT BHU. Also, we wanted to preserve that linkage, and therefore in the Executive Council of BHU, 2 nominees will be sent who shall be members of the Board of Governors of IIT BHU. So that therefore also that linkage will be established even with representation of BHU in the Board of Governors. of IIT BHU. And 3 members by the BHU, by the Executive Council of the BHU, shall be nominated to the Senate of IIT BHU. So there will be representation in the Senate, there will be representation in the board, and there will be a vice chairman of the board who will be a permanent vice chairman, as nominated by BHU. Because we also were very concerned about the fact that this linkage, his heritage of BHU should not be disturbed, and that linkage must remain. It's with that in mind, through a process of vast negotiations within the system, that this was done. And I'm very happy that the Chancellor of BHU, Dr. Karan Singh, was involved in that process as well. And now, so the position is that since the bill was passed in the Lok Sabha and children got their degrees already, children are not, the convocation is not being held. Children are waiting for a degree of IIT BHU, because naturally, sir, the prospects, the market prospects of such a degree are always greater, and parents and children are really waiting. As I said, sir, there were no provisions in the Act for establishment of a new IIT. None of the older IITs had originated through the Act. All of them started earlier in some form or the other as non-statutory institutions or as universities or as registered societies. So therefore, amendments had to be made in the Act itself. So that's really is, in a nutshell, the essence of the amendments that I have moved for the Institutes of Technology Amendment Bill 2011. Sir, there are some consequential amendments because of the substantive amendments that I have mentioned. There have to be consequential amendments which are reflected in various provisions of the IIT, of the Indian Institutes of Technology Act 1961. For example, in order to declare the 8 new IITs and IIT BHU Varanasi as institutes of national importance, there has to be a consequential amendment in Section 2, Section 4, Section 5 of the Institutes of Technology Act, which has been done. Certain consequential amendments in the definitions also have to be made, which has also been done in Section 3. We've added a new Section 5B because of the special status of the IIT BHU. A new section had to be added, which is 5B. A special provision has also been added in Section 12 in respect of the Board of Governors, because all other IITs have a different set of Board of Governors. But we wanted to give special status to IIT BHU. Therefore, there had to be a separate provision for the Board of Governors, which will reflect this integrative link between BHU and IIT permanently. So that therefore had to be separately mentioned in the Act itself. So there's a separate section for that, which is Section 11. There is also a consequential amendment and a special provision in Section 14, again in respect of the constitution of the Senate of IIT BHU, because the Senate of IIT BHU will not be like the Senate of any other IIT. So that also had to be done. So a special provision has been incorporated in the Act. And of course, Section 38 of the Act, which is again proposed to be amended, will provide that till such time as the statutes of the new IIT are framed, the new IIT would be governed by the statutes and ordinances of the institutes as in force immediately before the commencement of the IIT Amendment Act 2011. It is also proposed to provide for provisions during the transition period of IIT BHU to IT BHU to IIT BHU Varanasi. Then, sir, there was a suggestion by the Standing Committee that the zone which will be part of the IIT, in other words, if the IIT is located in X place, there is a zone of area which will fall under its area of jurisdiction. That had to be set out, so that section 3M, a new clause M has been put in Section 3, so that the government will notify the zone from time to time. So that amendment. These, sir, are by and large broadly the amendments that have been proposed in this Act. I want to assure the members of this House, I want to clarify it further. Nothing prevents the Board of Governors of the BHU, IIT BHU, to continue to appoint the Vice-Chancellor as the Chairman of the Board. He can also be part of the zone of consideration. So it is not as if he will never be considered. What we've done is we've statutorily decided that he shall be the Chairman and not and ensured that he can be in the zone of consideration when the Board of Governors and the Council decide as to who, and the search committee decides as to who should be the new Vice-Chancellor the new Chairman of the Board of Governors of IIT BHU. So any fear in that regard that we are in any way trying to belittle the significance and importance and in any way interfere with the enormous heritage of Banaras Hindu University is unfounded, and I wish to assure the House that we certainly have nothing in our minds to that effect. And as and when we proceed further in putting into effect the provisions of this Act, if there is any misgiving in any of these areas, we'd be very, very happy to work with all the members of this House and revisit it in the manner that the members consider appropriate. So this is the bill relating to the IITs. The other bill is the National Institutes of Technology bill, which seeks to incorporate the new NITs and the Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research as institutions of national importance. As you know, sir, the National Institute of Technology Act 2007 covered about 20 NITs, and it has been in operation for some time, since 2007 now. And in the meantime, the Prime Minister had announced the setting up of 5 Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research called the ISERs, and they started their courses in 2008. And now 3 years have already passed. We are in 2012. They haven't got their degrees too. The children are waiting and crying for their degrees. 1 year has already passed. They are waiting for this amendment to take place. The Lok Sabha has already cleared it. And I think that distinguished members of this House, I am sure, and I know, are sensitive to the concerns, at least of the student community, because I don't think that we should be responsible for delaying the degrees to students who have worked very hard, who have sacrificed, whose parents have sacrificed for them, who may have borrowed monies to study in these institutions, and we are not in a position to pass this bill so that the convocation can be quickly held and degrees be given to students who are waiting for this. So, of course, as you know, this proposal was sent to the Standing Committee, and by and large, sir, I can say with a sense of confidence that we have by and large accepted almost all the recommendations of the Standing Committee. In the NIT bill, we have accepted everything. In the other bill also, by and large, 80–90% of all the suggestions have been accepted by us. So we are working very closely with distinguished members of Parliament in the Standing Committee. We're working closely with the opposition, and I have no hesitation to say that we have considered everything that has been suggested to us. So as I was saying, the matter was sent to the Standing Committee, and when the matter went to the Standing Committee, in the meantime, the government announced in 2009 that 10 new IITs were set up. So then it was suggested that why don't you bring a comprehensive bill by which the 5 new ISERs are included and the 10 new IITs and NITs are included. So, because our policy was that all states in India, all union territories in India must have an NIT. And therefore, we decided to set up 10 more NITs in Arunachal Pradesh, in Sikkim, in Meghalaya, in Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Goa, Delhi, Uttarakhand, Puducherry. Goa was to cater for Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Lakshadweep. The Standing Committee has made some recommendations about the setting up of the NITs. and has suggested some changes in terms of the administrative structures, the composition of the Board of Governors, and the Standing Committee suggested that governance should be streamlined. They indicated that the Board of Governors that are set up by the, under the ICERs and the Council had very little role to play. And therefore the government's role should be reduced and the Council's role should be made prominent. They also indicated that the members of the Board of Governors and ICERs are 16 in number, whereas in NITs there are 11 in number. So those must be reduced. So we have accepted that. We've reduced the numbers as well. They indicated that they were too large and should be reduced. So we've accepted that. They said that there was over-representation of the central government amongst the nominees in the Board of ICERs. An expert should be nominated. We have accepted that as well. We have reduced the representation of the government. They also suggested that in many of these setups, the Chief Secretary has to attend the meetings. Chief Secretaries are important, are functionaries who have so many other things to do, so therefore they never come to the meetings. So it's better to allow Chief Secretaries to nominate people who will actually attend these meetings. We've accepted that as well. And they also said that the ICERs do not have any role in the nomination of those members of the Board of Governors. So they said, let's change the composition of the Board of Governors, let's reduce the number of secretaries that are included. Instead of 3, it should be 2. We have accepted that. Reduce the number of eminent scientists from 3 to 2. We've accepted that. They said it have at least one who should be a woman who had special knowledge or practical experience in respect of education, engineering or science to be nominated by the Council and not by the government. We've accepted that. Then they suggested that it's better to reduce the number of ex officio members, which is 5 secretaries to 4, representing ministries and departments of Government of India dealing with biotechnology, atomic energy, information technology and space. They were to be ex officio members. This suggestion has also been accepted. And then there was a further suggestion that in most of these Board of Governors, when secretaries are nominated, the secretaries and chief secretaries of states do not have time. I've already indicated that. That too has been accepted. So the broad parameters of the amendment I've already stated before distinguished members of this House. So I just wish to state one thing, that today in the 21st century, we must move towards setting up institutions of quality. Until we're able to do that, until we invest in research and produce institutions of excellence, I don't think that we'll be able to compete with the rest of the world. The number of PhDs that are being produced in India are abysmally low. And we need to increase the number of PhDs. We need to empower our children by giving them grants for research. And of course, most important, we need to improve the governance structures of these institutions. We need to de-link the age-old umbilical cord link between government and these institutions. Though these institutions are accountable, must remain accountable because they are financed through public funding. At the same time, we must give them enough free play in the joints to emerge as institutions of excellence through an ecosystem that they must evolve themselves. And that kind of autonomy is happening, and I have in fact freed up a lot of the strings that were attached to funding by Government of India to many of those institutions. If you ask any director now, sir, or you ask the Council, you will realize that they in fact are happy with the fact that we are giving them enormous autonomy to move forward quickly. Faculty recruitment is taking place at a very fast pace today. And I'm also very happy to state, and this is for all the members of this House, that if you really look at these institutions, especially the IITs, they almost represent meet the aspirations of students belonging to the scheduled caste, the scheduled class, and the OBCs. I must tell you, sir, that I was actually looking at some of these the figures of the intake into the system. And I was very happy to note that that the IIT system now, within the student community, has that the representation of students is equivalent to the reservation that is provided. The OBCs are a little short, but other than that, SCs, STs are fully represented. OBCs are 80 to 90% represented in these institutions. So the inclusive education agenda that UPA government was talking about to bringing OBCs, SCs, STs into the system has been achieved. As far as faculty is concerned, I again wish to state that in the humanities on the entry side, there is faculty reservation throughout, right up to professor. On the science side, there is faculty representation at the initial stage, at the stage of associate professor. And once the Right to Education Act is fully implemented, and 2020, when we hope to see 100% retention in schools, you will see a jump in numbers in SCs and STs, both in terms of student community and in terms of faculty. So on the OBC side, we don't count all those OBCs who are, by virtue of their own levels of excellence, admitted in the general category. So in a sense, if you really were to look at all the numbers, I think that the inclusive agenda of the UPA government is showing enormous results, and we hope to continue to move along that path. And I therefore, with these words, sir, commend both these bills to distinguished members of this House. Thank you.